Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the third in HeatSmart Southern Tier's webinar series for clean heating and cooling. My name is Adam Flint, and I'm the Director of Clean Energy Programs here at the Network for a Sustainable Tomorrow. Just want to thank you all for joining us today. So today we're going to be focusing on our geothermal partner, Dailey Electric. We have Ryan and Leah Dailey here on the line, and we're going to be hearing about a specific case study, a retrofit of the home of Bruce Monger in Lansing, New York, just outside of Ithaca. Bruce is available for the Q&A. I expect that most of us are Zoom veterans, but just as a reminder, please stay muted until we've gotten to the Q&A part of the presentation. If you have any questions in the meantime, please put them in the chat. We'll handle most of those during the Q&A, but it's possible we may grab some of them during the presentation. If you're having any technical difficulties, also put those in the chat, please. So at this point, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Haley Delisle, who is the Director of HeatSmart Southern Tier, and she is going to begin our presentation, followed by the folks from Dailey Electric. Haley?
Hi, everyone. I apologize I'm not on video. I'm having some internet difficulties today, as is the new life with Zoom. Okay, so first I'm going to start off. We're going to go over what the Network for a Sustainable Tomorrow is. We're a nonprofit that has a series of different programs. You may have heard of us under Southern Tier Solar Works, or HeatSmart Southern Tier, or we have a Binghamton Community Power Program. And so we've just recently rebranded to a Network for a Sustainable Tomorrow. And the goal is to, make it have like one giant nonprofit that has all of these programs. So then it could be easier to find information and that kind of stuff. Okay, so today we're going to talk about HeatSmart Southern Tier, which is one of several campaigns across the state that is focusing on educating about the incentives and, how some of the different technologies and processes you can take advantage of to more efficiently heat and cool your home. And I do apologize. Adam, can I pass it over to you? I'm having difficulty seeing the slides.
Yep, I can take it over. That's fine. This
I'm
is
sorry about that.
part of the game with Zoom. No worries. The one thing I wanted to mention is that there are more programs in our series, and you should be seeing on your screen our remaining programs. We actually have, I think he's still here. Yep, we have one of our other partners online, Dave Tierno from AirSource LLC. So that's actually going to be our very next event on November 12th. You can see the rest there. So basically we have three kinds of programs. We have programs like the one you're on right now, where we feature a particular partner in technology and case study. We have others where we're just looking at that technology and that business to really have a chance to deep dive into geothermal or air source heat pumps or energy efficiency. And then we have our general webinars, the next one of which is on the 18th of November, where we cover it all and all of our partners are there. So today we're going to be talking about the value proposition of HeatSmart, and we're going to spend most of our time hearing from our partners, Dailey Electric, and then we're going to move into Q&A, but through that you're going to find out about how geothermal works, a little bit about Dailey, a lot about Bruce Monger's home, and something about incentives and financing and how to participate. As Haley mentioned, we're one of many programs across the state sponsored by the New York State Energy Research Development Authority. And our job here is to connect and educate folks who have buildings that want to transition to clean heating and cooling and energy efficiency. And this is a very important thing to do for many reasons, but I think it's also bears knowing that in this state, we are moving away from fossil fuels very decisively. And so by the time that my 10-year-old daughter is my age, we will not be using any fossil fuels for for heating and cooling in the state of New York. There might be a few uses for manufacturing, but that's going to be about it. So the sooner folks make that transition, the better. And we're here to make it easy, having competitively selected installer partners that are the best of the best to help you do that. Normally we would be doing this in person, but we've obviously had to transition to an online format for obvious reasons. So our program seeks to help you reduce energy costs and live in a more comfortable and safer home. And I'll say parenthetically, I have a geothermal system in my home, have had for some years. It was not put in by Dailey, but it's being maintained by Dailey because the installer that put it in is no longer with us. So Dailies are here for the long haul, and that's important when you are choosing a contractor. It's also a great way to reduce your carbon footprint, and we try to make the community educated and aware of clean energy technology. It's a huge job and economic development driver in addition to a value proposition for the individual building owner. So where are we now in terms of New York State? As you can see from this infographic, buildings are a big part of our greenhouse gas production. And once you leave the New York City metropolitan area, that number actually goes up, all right? Because in New York City, there's a lot of large multifamily buildings, and we don't have those upstate, so we use a little bit more. So it's an important part of our overall state effort to move quickly to clean energy. So our program covers a number of technologies. Weatherization, energy efficiency is very, very important. And our last program actually featured our partners from the Insulation Man to talk about that. They'll be back again in a future program. But today we're here to talk about heat pumps, specifically ground source or geothermal heat pumps. As I mentioned, on the 18th of next month, we'll be talking about air source. And heat pump hot water heaters are also a thing. We won't be talking about those today in the presentation, but if you have questions about that, you can certainly ask. So our partners, which as I mentioned, were selected through a competitive process. In addition to Dailey Geothermal, who is our ground source heat pump or geothermal partner, we have the Insulation Man for home performance and energy efficiency based in Binghamton, Air Source LLC covering heat pumps based in Shenango County, and D&D Refrigeration that covers just Delaware County. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Ryan Dailey, who's the principal of Dailey Electric, to talk about his business and technology and the work on Bruce's home. Ryan? Ryan, you're still muted.
Sorry, I couldn't see my screen. Hi, I'm Ryan Dailey. I own Dailey Electric in Pennsylvania, New York. We're a small business with 21 employees. My father started the business in the early 90s, and I took it over in mid 2000s from him. It was mainly a plumbing and electric business, and we transitioned more over to HVAC and then pretty much into geothermal in the 2011-12 timeframe. And today, three-quarters of our business is geothermal. Small part of it is air source, and then the rest of it is residential plumbing, electric on new construction homes. My wife joined business and runs the office and takes care of pretty much everything. I guess I own it, but she pretty much runs everything, as Bruce would agree with, as everyone would agree with. So that is my business in a small little town we live in. Adam, I have a question because this is on my phone and I can't see both screens. So, how are you gonna...
So what we can do is, sorry, go ahead.
I can go back so that I can just see the one screen, but I just can't see both of them. Right? I'm sorry.
So you can't see the screen that's coming up, or the screen that is on currently?
I have the heat pump screen. I just can't see anything else. I can't see the start of Bruce's slideshow.
Okay, yeah, we just have a couple of slides to go. If you'd like me to do these, I can, or you can do them. Yep, okay. Yeah, there's like 3 slides, and then we're getting into Bruce's slideshow.
Okay. So I mean, Bruce's house has the same thing as a geothermal heat pump. It's the same technology as a refrigerator, air source heat pump. It's pretty much all the same, except how it's fed. Bruce is fed with a loop field, a vertical borehole, where air source is fed with air. It's the same refrigeration process, and we get either heating or cooling, and we can produce hot water under some situations. Bruce's system is 100% hot water, but that's a different, we'll go over that later. But essentially it's a giant refrigerator that's plugged into the ground instead of the wall. There we go. So there's the three main technologies. Dave that's on here does mostly air source heat pumps. We do mostly ground source. And then I believe we both put in heat pump hot water heaters. They're fairly popular. We don't put a lot of them in. Actually, we put very few of them in, mainly because we can do hot water production 100% with geothermal. So we haven't had a huge demand for those. Along with ground source VRF, we'll put in heat pump hot water heaters, but they're not very common. They are common, but they're not common with us because of the ability to put 100% in. So here's our different loop fields, two of them, vertical, horizontal. These are both closed loop systems. Horizontally, we dig trenches and put loop fields in. They can be slinkies, they can be racetracks, they can be all kinds of different ways. Vertical, they are boreholes based on the load of the house, how deep we go. Generally speaking, pretty common size houses, normally a one 500-foot borehole with 1.5-inch pipe grouted with a thermal grout. That is what Bruce has. A majority of our systems are vertical. We have quite a few horizontal systems, and then there's open loop systems that are a small percentage because they're rare to be able to find. And when you actually do find them, they can be the most efficient systems out of all of them. There's also lake systems where we have a closed loop system in the lake, and we have probably 15, 20 of those in the lakes around us, and they work very well also because the lake temperatures, cooling wise, they work unbelievable. Heating, they're pretty good too. So that's your common loop systems right there. Okay, so this picture is of a water furnace 7 series unit. It is a extremely efficient forced air unit. It is pretty much the most efficient. It is the most efficient unit on the geothermal marketplace right now. Everything inside of that unit is a variable capacity, flow center, loop field, the drives, everything about that is variable. So out of that, you will generally get a much longer lifetime than you would have out of a single stage or 2-stage product. And that unit eliminates all fossil fuels in your home. Should you remove a furnace, boiler, if you could get ductwork in, whatever you would do in the current situation of the home. And that can also have a de-superheater off of it to produce hot water. That has changed a little bit with the current rebate format, how it goes. When NYSERDA gave us a much better rebate when we were putting in 100% when we did Bruce's home, where now they don't value the benefit of hot water as much. NYSEG in RG&E and the current rebate situation does not value hot water production as much as NYSERDA did, which somehow we've got to change. But that is the 7 series. That's a wicked unit. Okay, Bruce's house. So this is like originally when Bruce bought it. He bought it, I believe, not much before we put the system in. I think maybe a year, Bruce. I can't even remember now. And
yeah, about a year.
Yeah. Okay. In big propane, 500-gallon regular propane tank in the yard. Bruce's house is much different actually than most houses, as we'll see. Has I guess a crawl space, we'll call it, but it's only about 4 to 6 inches in between a slab and then how the house was built up on it. So he had these runnel type radiators throughout the home. and it was a little bit different application for sure. So which one's next? So there's the manual Jay when we did on his home. We went down. He has the house is south facing. He has a lot of solar gain. That heats the house pretty well throughout the winter, and actually isn't a huge issue in the summer. As big probably as we thought it would be, but he had 43,000 BTUs of heat loss, which was probably less than I figured it would be based on how the home was built. And then the cooling load probably a little bit more than we would normally see on that size home, but pretty average for that size home. That's pretty average heat loss. So what we used at his house, which you probably show next, would be a 5-ton water-to-water unit. And we used a vertical 500-foot borehole, 1.5-inch loop with thermal grout. That is the hole after Moravic's drilled it right in his front yard. And the boys are fusing on pipe to take it into his house. Okay, that's Moravic's, guys. That's a grout trailer. So that is the loop going down, and that is the tremie line next to it is what pumps the grout down to it. That's on the rail to the right. That goes with the loop, and then it's pulled back up very slowly as the hole fills up with grout. You can see the casing sticking out of the ground that the wheels are on. That casing, when we dig it up, the casing is cut off down below the ground, and then we cut the pipe off and fuse on from there and take it into the house. That is how we had to come up in Bruce's house. We could not get underneath your typical foundation, basement, room, utility room. We could not get down and up in, so we had to bring the pipes up the outside and in. Very rarely happens that way. And then Bruce made these nice boxes because we are not carpenters, and they turned out very nice. That's the outdoor air sensor you can see next to the little white box next to the housing. There is essentially what runs the controller inside that I'll show you later, that runs the water temperatures throughout the year. So this is a tight utility room, very tight, as you can see. That's the old boiler that was in there. That's just a temporary, we tore the hot water tank out, and that's a temporary tank that Damon put in, I believe, so that Bruce had hot water while we piped the system in. The picture to the right is both units stacked. The bottom one is the 5-ton NEW. It's an OptiHeat unit, produces up to 140 degree water, we'll say 138. The top unit is an NSW unit, is just a 2-ton hot water only unit that produces all of Bruce's hot water. That is about as small a utility room as we could possibly get that jammed into. You can see to the left, there's a buffer tank hidden back in there. There is a 80-gallon hot water tank right to the left of the picture. The buffer tank's right in the center, I'm sorry. And then the blue control box you can see right in the center has a Techmar box mount on the front, and then a Techmar control that runs the cooling mounted on top of that. That's as far back as we could get to actually get a good picture of the system. It's a really small room. So that's the control box. The outdoor air sensor comes into that, and then there's a whole pile of relays inside of there that allow that unit to switch back and forth from heating to cooling. The bottom controller is the heating cooling. The top one is the AC. And then that's to the right is the Symphony. That is a web-based platform that monitors the system. Doesn't really monitor a whole bunch in Bruce's house. Let me think here. The NEW units do not have this. I guess it doesn't have the board that we need inside of it to see all the stuff that we can inside of the 7 series and the 5 series. Those units, we can see what the unit is doing every 10 seconds, and it's monitored from our office. You can see stuff on your phone and we can tell exactly everything it's doing. That particular setup at Bruce's house is pretty basic. We can see incoming water temperatures, outgoing water temperatures, and not a whole lot more yet. We're hoping to get the little more advanced board pretty soon, so we can see a lot more. So that's face on. The right to the left on the top unit, you can see the flow center in the back has two variable speed pumps on it. Those pumps are turned on, they're slaved by the NEW unit on the bottom. And then when the top unit turns on, that bottom unit makes that pump run harder on the right. So the left we have it set up so that it's like 100% flow. In the second pump would turn on to bring more, the loop field is split and shared between the two. And then as the bottom unit acting as the master for them both. There's right to the right, you can see there's an electric 10 kW auxiliary heater that is backup if something were to fail. That if there's a timer inside of that control box we have set up so that, let's say we have it set for like 15 hours. If there was a call for heat for 15 hours straight and nothing happened, that would kick on, giving Bruce 34,000 BTUs of heat until we could get down there and fix it. That's just solely a backup. The pump, I can just see up to the right or to the left there, you can see the variable speed velo pump that is the delivery method to all the units in the home. So that is a really small picture. Is the next one better? Let's see the next one, Adam. So there's your zone valves. So there is 5 zones. Actually 3 zones of baseboard of the heaters in Bruce's home, and then we added 2 air handlers. I was really nervous about the flow that we were going to get through those units because they're 1/2-inch feeds going to them. So definitely not going to be enough BTUs delivered, I didn't think, without being 180-degree water. So, and Bruce wanted cooling. So we added the 2 extra zones, one right in the living room on the back side of this wall is a 3-ton multi-aqua air handler that does heating and cooling. And then there's a chilled water or heated water. And then there's a smaller one that goes down to his son's bedroom. It actually goes outside, goes underground, and then comes back up inside and is a console unit, multi-aqua console unit as the 5th zone to provide heating and cooling in the farthest room away. There, that's the 2 of them. So that's the 3-ton unit. That wall right there where that's mounted, the back side of that is the utility room. And then we get a lot of questions about noise. And the unit, both those units are right on the back side of Bruce's living room. So they're not horrible. And that is a multi-aqua console unit that is, we can see the hot water unit next to it to the left, but that multi-aqua unit provides heating and cooling in that far bedroom. So there is a comparison on, we didn't really have a lot to go on in this house for Bruce as far as paybacks because we really hadn't had long-term usage. I kind of based it on the boiler that was there versus what we were putting in. So we could see that the NEW unit heating and cooling costs and hot water costs should have been around, I can't see it, it's so small on my phone. I can't even see how small it is.
So I can see it. Whoops. It looks to be about 580 for heating.
There you go. Is that pretty close? How did we end up last year?
Talking, I can't quite read where the 500 is, et cetera, but I can say that, you know, in past year that maybe year and a half that we didn't have the heat pump, we either used wood, which we used almost 7 cords of wood, or when we used pure natural gas, you know, the bills were somewhere in the $300 range to refill every month or so. And When we installed the heat pump, I think it might have in the winter when it was cold added $100 to the electric bill. It was usually when we used natural gas to heat or we used wood to heat, the bill was about a $75 a month electric. And when we added the pump, it might have gone up to 170 in the coldest times. That's a while, it fluctuates so much because the way NYSEG does estimated and actual billing, it kind of wafts up and down. I think just future reference for people that may make the switch. I don't know how NYSEG makes the calculation, but how many years past they make it. But I think they're still assuming that we have a natural gas source, and they haven't quite caught up with leveling out the billing between estimated and actual costs for month to month. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a normal conversation we have with people is that their electric bill is going to go up, but the highest bills should be January, February, March. Those should be your highest bills for the whole year, should be around those time frames.
So I can just read off that the life cycle cost of ownership for this system is $66,000 less than the existing system as you projected it.
Well, that was with the system installed.
Sorry.
So compared it versus like putting a new one in there, I think
A new propane
new boiler. Yeah, if you used to put a new boiler in.
Gotcha.
Okay, so yeah, I absolutely cannot see that.
Can I real quick add a couple of comments while you guys, we have the, Cass and I didn't put the heat pump in specifically to, long-term cost save. We did it basically because of climate change and setting this example for our son that we believe, that the world has to transition. So anyway, that we haven't paid that close of attention to bills before and bills after for heating. And that's why I'm a little bit vague on it. And I'd also make the quick comment that, the externality of using natural gas and the cost of that we don't include, would raise the cost of natural gas substantially if we paid for the actual cost of climate, interventions because of the climate change.
It's huge. So there's propane tank gone. Much better yard.
So Ryan, since you were on your phone, I think I'm actually going to do these after all.
So Hank, the only thing I want to go over with that, Adam, is that Bruce had a much different rebate incentive plan than this, because he had money from the moratorium area, and he also had 30%, and he also had NYSERDA. At the time, NYSERDA's rebate with the 100% hot water was much better than NYSEG and current numbers.
Yeah, and since you bring that up, I will mention that the transition is underway. It's been going on since April, and we're certainly always speaking with the folks in the state to make both financing incentives more robust. And there is a hope that in the new year we'll see some significant help from the federal government and possibly an increase back to 30% for the tax credit. However, currently today, I'll talk about what we actually have. So I apologize for the busyness of this slide. I'm not going to read through the whole thing. We're going to focus simply on the ground source heat pump area. So you can see the second big row there. This is an incentive based on BTU hours, and Ryan, you can correct me, but a decent average rule of thumb for BTU hours might be 40,000 for a home. So you can do the math. That's $6,000 worth of incentives there. And there are a number of requirements regarding the quality of the equipment. That equipment is installed by Dailey, so nothing to worry about there. Then in terms of the tax credits, the current tax credit until the end of this year is 26%. We can talk in more detail if you want to get into the weeds about that, but I will say that that's something where legally we have to say, talk to your tax attorney or your tax professional rather. And you need to have tax liability. That is, you need to be paying federal taxes of a reasonably significant nature to take advantage. This will go down to 22% as things go, and unless there's a change. Moving on to the next, financing. There's a lot more out there than I'm going to go over here, but the NYSERDA products that are available, there are 2 of them. I actually have the second one myself. It's an on-bill recovery loan, meaning that my payments are included in my monthly NYSEG bill. I was fortunate enough to do this back when 3.49 was the only percentage that they had. And actually with auto pay, I'm doing 3%. So maybe this is not a good idea that we're telling people that everybody got a better deal earlier, but currently 3.49% is what you get up to 200% of area median income. And we can give you those numbers if need be later. And then 6.99% interest above that. Both of these loans are 5, 10, and 15-year fixed rate terms. The smart energy loan is different. The on-bill recovery loan can stay with the home because it's attached to the utility bill. With the smart energy loan, if you leave the home, the debt stays with you. Then there are a variety of specialized finance companies, and I should know this. Do you guys use Enterbank, or who's your?
We use Enterbank.
What's that? Ryan, which one do you use?
We use Enterbank.
You do use Enterbank, yeah, and they are a finance company that works with a lot of different clean energy providers. I know ETM Solar, which is another partner of ours, uses Enterbank. You might get a great loan from your own bank or credit union. Bruce, being in Tompkins County, has access to a wider range of financial institutions than we do here, but I belong to Visions and they don't do badly. If anyone on this webinar is a commercial customer, we can talk a little bit about PACE during the Q&A. So I will just mention 2 more slides before we go to the Q&A, and these are income eligible programs. And so the first is assisted home performance with Energy Star. And this covers a wide range of different kinds of technologies, but coming soon, it's going to be including heat pumps. Not yet, but it's going to be. What is existing right now is an expanded eligibility to 120% of area median income. And I notice we're missing an I there for the notes. And so the income limits you can see here to your right. So if you are a family of 4 with an income equal to or lesser than $115,128 in Broome County, the numbers may be slightly different in other counties. And again, we can get those for you. Then you qualify for this. It's up to $5,000 for a single family, 50% coverage up to $5,000. So if you have a $10,000 job, you will get $5,000. If it's 15, you will still get $5,000. If anyone here is an owner of 2 to 4 unit small multifamily buildings, you can see the limit there. So that's one of the 2 programs that the state has available, income eligible programs. Then the second one, lastly, is the Empower program. This program is entirely free and available to homeowners that are under 60% of the state median income. So if you're on HEAP or TANF or any similar programs, you qualify for this. Maximum award is increased till the end of the year to $10,000. And again, next month, we're anticipating that this will include heat pumps. So basically, in order to participate in the program, you sign up on our website at nynest.org. You just go to the Heat Smart program and sign up there, and we'll pass that along to Leah and Ryan. They will do an assessment on your home to find out if geothermal is right for you, and if so, what installing a system would look like financially and physically. and you get a quote. And then if you decide that you want to go forward, obviously they can talk about finance then too. Only at that point do you have any obligation if you sign a contract, and then they'll help you with the incentives and financing, and then the installation gets done. So with that, we're going to move to questions. And I don't know, Bruce, if before we start with questions, I don't know if maybe there's some more things that you'd like to say up front.
Well, there's one thing that came to mind when you guys were talking about finance. Cassie, my wife, and I were finally made the decision on getting this installed, but it was, December when we did this, early December, mid-December, and we were worried. We weren't sure if the whole entire system had to be in place before, because they were changing the rebate rates for like the tax rebate for federal government and NYSERDA. And it turns out you just have to have signed the contract and made a start on getting it installed. You don't have to have it completely installed. So we got, all the signatures on forms that sort of committed us to this just before the 31st of December. So we locked in the higher rebate rates that would have dropped the following day, essentially. So it doesn't have to be in place, but that shouldn't be any cause for you to push to the last minute either.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Bruce, because obviously sometimes, either Ryan is scheduled out a bit or the homeowner may not be ready to move right away. But you can get in by signing a contract in this year to take advantage of the 26% incentive. Let's open it up for questions. I will just mention one that David asked in the chat in case others didn't see that, especially those of you who are on the phone. David was saying LMI incentives, or the low and moderate income incentives, are on top of the clean heat incentives through NYSEG and the tax credits. And yes, that is the case.
Yeah.
So other questions, and you can ask to be unmuted, or you can go ahead and put something else in the chat. And actually, I do want to, while we're waiting for some questions to come in, I want to welcome Scott Smith from NYSERDA, who's joined us. He's our fearless project manager, pleasure to work with. And so glad to see you there. And also Lisa Marshall, who is our counterpart from Heat Smart Tompkins. So for those of you who might actually be living outside our service area, which is Tioga and Broome, Shenango, and Delaware counties, you'd be working with Lisa. The good news is that you'd still be working with Ryan and Leah because they're a partner over there too. So that speaks loudly to their accomplishments that they were selected by 2 programs. Oh yes, Chemung County. My apologies, Lisa. Yes, Tompkins and Chemung. And as you saw from the map, there are programs in many parts of the state.
Thanks.
So I see a question from Jean in the chat. Does income mean taxable income or total income on the federal tax form? One of us might be able to answer that question unofficially. Is there anyone who could do that? But I will again say, check with your tax professional. Leah, Ryan, you want to take an unofficial stab at that?
No.
Yeah, honestly, I had it myself, and it's so long ago that is this Jean? Is this maybe let's if you don't mind, Jean, I'm going to unmute you. And well, I have to ask you to unmute. So if you don't want to be unmuted, there we go.
I am unmuted.
Yeah. So
Hi.
do you mean for qualifying for the assisted home performance or for the tax credit?
I mean for either.
Oh, for either. Okay. So Scott, do you happen to know the answer to that? I should, but or Lisa for that matter.
I think it's taxable income, but I'm not sure how that would be different than total income on the federal form. So
When you fill out your federal form, you put all your income in at the top: wages, Social Security, blah 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 blah. But then some things are taken out. For
Yeah,
instance, if you contribute to a 401k or other things are taken out, and then you get to a taxable income. And I
yes,
meet the requirements if it's taxable income, but not if it's total income.
I'm pretty sure it's total income. I don't know if,
I think you're right, Scott. We've had a bunch of these where there's people that are, have social security, are on more fixed income, things like that, where definitely becomes a question to make sure that you can either roll the incentive over, or that you qualify for the full amount. That's definitely something that's checked into a lot before anything's done.
Okay, so it'd be worthwhile to go to Nest if I'm interested and fill that out, and then we can look at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lisa Marshall put in the chat that this is a very common question. So I think we want to get an official ruling on that. She also points out that you can either use your 29, if you're doing it this year, you could use your 2019 return, or you can use recent paychecks if you're making less this year, which many of us are.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Thank you, Jean.
One more thing is there, I'm hearing that the applications for assisted home performance are getting pretty backed up. So if you think you might qualify, just go ahead and fill out that form as soon as you can. It doesn't take long to fill out, and it helps speed the process along.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so once you send us our information, we get that over to Dailey right away, and they'll be in touch. And if that's something that you want to look into, they can point you directly to the place where that form is. We could do that as well, and as obviously talk about the assessment process too.
Okay.
Thanks, Jean.
Mhm.
Other questions? Bruce, is there something more you'd like to add? I could actually add a couple of things from my own experience, but it's kind of ancient history at this point because my system is almost 10 years old.
I could say a couple of things. One, I know people, well, I'll say, I had the house for a year, and my wife and I, Cassie, struggled with trying to figure out would a geothermal system work in our house. We have a boiler, radiator, hot water. I assumed naively that it was just forced air systems that would make that work, and I was happy to find out through one of the Heat Smart Tompkins information events they held down at Myers Park that they have systems that can connect geothermal heat pumps to your hydronic system. And that was what really got us started, knowing that we could connect our existing radiators to a new heat pump system and take advantage of the radiators that were already there. If you have really old radiators, you may not be able to keep them, but we had new enough ones, modern enough ones that it connected pretty nicely with the lower temperature heat pump being used.
Yeah, actually, I have a hydronic system as well, which is the hot water system that goes to radiators. And I think the moral of the story is get an assessment. It doesn't cost you anything. And if it turns out something's not going to work, then at least you'll know that from a place of knowledge and expertise. And I'll also say too that we do have our air source partner as well, and Dailey and air source work together very nicely. If a given building is much more suited to one rather than the other, you'll be referred over, or you could get both assessments if you wish. So yeah, get an assessment. Don't wait to schedule it. This is the very, very busy time, right? I mean, right now, Ryan and Leah are even busier than they normally are, which is busy. We actually had Leah come on and talk to our interns on Friday, which was actually fascinating. Thanks again, Leah. And these folks work very, very hard. But for your purposes, don't delay. If it's something you think you might want, seriously, go for it. Lisa's got some more advice here. If anybody is, yes, so good point. For folks who are heating with anything other than gas, propane, oil, or electric resistance, you're looking at a very significant cost saving. I can certainly speak to that. I got hit back in 2008 with the last really big spike in energy costs. We've had other spikes since, but that's still the biggest one that we've had in the last 20 years. And I was on heating oil. I was paying something around, well, every time I filled the tank, it was $1,000. So that year, I think I spent something like $7,000 on energy altogether, including electricity. And so it, became obvious to me that I either had to change that or find another house. So I got insulation work done by the insulation man in 2 stages. And then I took out a loan to get our geothermal system, and I'm very happy with it. And so I am obviously somebody who cares about the climate, given my occupation, if nothing else. But financially, it's been a boon. And actually, I'll just add on the top of that, I've also signed up for community shared solar through our own program. And so now I'm saving 20% on my electric supply cost, which is very important when you have heat pumps, because when you have heat pumps, you are using more electricity. That's a fact. So if you can either put solar on your property or get community solar, they go very well together. Other questions? We still have a little bit of time if anyone has anything they want to ask.
I'll add a couple more. This is Bruce. I'll add a couple more things. The hydronic system works great, but we were super happy that we added the additional fan coil handler as well, because that provides really nice air conditioning in the summer. And we've never had air conditioning in our lives. And we've walked in, especially this summer when it was 90 something degrees outside. And we're just like, oh my God, this is amazing. So that adding, if you have hot water radiators, if you add that fan coil addition, it makes really nice summers. And then one last thing, when I think about the cost of putting in the geothermal system, for us anyhow, with all the rebates, when all was said and done, it's sort of the cost of a really nice used car or a fairly low end new car. So if you're thinking about costs, you might kind of line it up in your head with, would you buy a new car? Would you buy a really nice used car? That's kind of what, after all the rebates are brought back, that's kind of what you're talking about. At least that's how I feel it equates out to about.
That's really well put. And we're spending a lot of time in our houses as opposed to our cars right now. And alas, that's not likely to change anytime really soon. And that's one of the reasons why our friends in the contracting business are so busy, is people are not going on vacations if they can afford to go on vacations from the past, and they're putting it into their homes. This is a good time to do that. And I will second what Bruce says. We have 2 air handlers on the 2nd floor. And one thing to note is that because these are not standard air conditioning units with old-fashioned compressors, they're cheap to run. They're really cheap to run. So, in the summertime, you're getting air conditioning. It's not free, but it is so cheap.
It is very cheap. The cooling is very cheap.
I think it was I think we calculated it once, about $1 a day.
Very cheap.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic benefit of heat pumps and geothermal in particular. Lisa, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, I was wondering, Bruce, if you had if you needed additional insulation or air sealing before you got this new heating system, or was your house already really well insulated?
It was built 12 years. It's now 15 years old. So it was built with quite a lot of insulation in it to begin with, I think. So we didn't modify anything.
No, that heat loss, when I did that heat loss, I was pretty on the safe side. I was a little nervous just how it's built. I knew it was built good, but I was still a little leery on some of the I guess aspects of how it was built.
Well, the previous owner is the guy that built it himself. So it wasn't built by, some construction company.com. It was built by himself. So
we were just kind of, I'd had a little fudge factor there that I wanted to be safe with. And I think that actually what was your house was, you go look at that as far as any system with baseboard, it's not even close to that, Adam. So that was a big thing with his, was that those units only had 1/2 inch supplies to them. I mean, we have no flow. It's terrible. We needed at least 3/4 going to them. So I was extremely nervous. We turned Bruce's Aquastat down just to test it and see what it did. And it still heated. So I was like, I don't know, maybe it'll work, but we definitely needed the backup, knowing that we had the multi-aquas in there just to pump some more heat in there. They really worked pretty good without them, which was a surprise.
Ryan, did you tell the folks about how you can monitor how Bruce's system is working with the Symphony software?
We can't monitor his very much. That was the Symphony that I was talking about earlier. The water to waters don't have a lot of data available on them. It's pretty borderline. We can see that it's running and not a whole lot. It's the 7 series and 5 series that it's unbelievable what you can see. I mean, we can adjust the units from our office and not even have to go to people. So like Jerry, so we're putting 3 units in. I think Jerry's still on. We're putting 3 7 series units in down at their church, and we can monitor every single thing those units are doing, airflow, compressor speed, everything from 2 hours away. So that's pretty huge. Bruce is not that. We don't have that quite of amount of sophistication in his unit yet.
I'm sure you let Water Furnace know that they need to change that, right?
Never. We've never told them.
No? Oh, you should.
It's a once a week complaint.
Oh, you're okay. I haven't quite got Ryan's sense of humor yet. A lot of dryness. Other questions?
You know that. The Water Furnace does good. There's not anywhere you go, there isn't a huge push for jumping in technology for water to water products like Bruce's. Bruce's is really, we're not going to see a whole lot more advancement in that because there's just not the demand. There's just so many systems are forced air systems across the country that all that research and development money is just going into forced air technology. It's just not there for residential hydronics.
Well, it's our job to get lots more folks out there wanting to get those systems. So once the market builds up, maybe we'll see that. Last call for questions. Any last thing that anyone on the line would like to say? All right. Well, I want to thank a whole group of people who are on here. I want to particularly thank Bruce for coming on. That was really helpful to hear about your experience. It was fun. That was kind of like mine in some ways and not in others. Always want to thank Leah and Ryan for putting in the time to come to these things. I know you guys have a lot of other things you need to be doing. And Scott, our partner in crime there from NYSERDA, thanks for joining us. As also Lisa, our colleague, and to my whole team and everyone who is here. I really appreciate your taking your time out during lunch and hope it was worth it. And look forward to seeing some of you come through on our website. Have a great afternoon, everybody. And thanks again.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.